Suicide and the eternal nature of the soul. Introduction. So, you've thought about ending your life. You have your reasons, and no one really understands these reasons except you. There might be people, some who even seem to be sincere, who claim to understand why you're thinking this way. But do they really? Do they really understand why you want to take your life? No, they don't understand. If they did, they should be able to help you change your mind to keep on living. This truly is a lone and dreary world here. No matter how hard you've tried to accept your life on earth, your existence just doesn't seem to bring you the happiness that you constantly yearn for. Besides this intense longing for happiness, you may have wondered, well, who am I and why do I exist? You may have heard many different answers to these questions, but probably none of them have made much sense to you. None of these so-called answers have helped you feel comfortable with you or given you a sense that your life really is worth living. If you've thought about or are thinking about ending your life, this book is for you. Before you end your existence on this earth, give this book a chance. The purpose of this book is not to change your mind immediately. One book shouldn't have that type of power over you. Your thoughts about ending your life and your possible decision to do so prove just how much power you have over your own existence. No one has the power to stop you from taking your own life. As mentioned above, you might know some sincere family members, some friends, teachers, preachers, or counselors who claim they want to help you. But have any of these people given you the answers to the questions that you can't help but ponder each and every day? Again, who am I? Why do I exist? Obviously, you have not yet heard or found any answers that are satisfying, or any that have convinced you that your life is worth living. If those sincere people in your life had provided such an answer, you wouldn't still be thinking about ending your life. Ending your life is pretty easy to do. Many have done it before you. Many will do it while you are watching this video. Even more will do it in the next second, in the next minute, in the next hour, in the next day, in the next week, and in the next year. The suicide rate is rising throughout this world. No one seems to know what to do about it. Our hope is that after considering this information, the information provided in this book, you will find the power within yourself to change your own mind. This should be done by yourself without being manipulated in any way by anyone. You know what other people have said. You've heard their encouragement to keep on keeping on, but nothing they've said has helped you. You still feel hopeless, living in a lonely and unexciting world. Perhaps what they have said is the problem. You have heard from them, but have you heard the real truth about who you are and why you exist? There are all kinds of truths. Everyone thinks their opinion of truth is right. And it shouldn't be too surprising to realize that in the process of thinking they're right, they must also think that everyone else is wrong. Is it possible that everyone is right, which makes everyone wrong? Consider all the truths that other people embrace, many times trying to convince you that only theirs is acceptable. The constant arguments and heated discussions that you've heard are a mass of confusion. Do any of their truths answer your questions about who you are and why you exist? It is entirely reasonable to feel sick and tired of people not being able to answer your questions. They present their truths, but when you have questions about their truths, they cannot offer satisfactory answers. This discourages you and adds to the massive confusion already inside of your head. This may result in feelings of wanting to end this confusion, and sometimes the thought of committing suicide seems like the only sure way. We propose that there actually is a real truth. Thus, with total confidence, we've asked the publisher to register this idea of real truth as a trademark, distinguishing it from all other supposed truths on earth. The real truth is defined as things as they really are in the present, as they really were in the past, and as they really will be in the future. If something is real truth, then it is the same today as it was thousands of years ago, and as it will continue to be true tomorrow and forever. We claim to have the real truth about who you are and why you exist. We claim that it can answer all of your questions, leaving none unanswered. It can make sense out of all the confusion caused by their truths, their ideas and beliefs that have turned the human earth experience into a lone and dreary world. We promise to give you some examples of things as they really are concerning your existence as a human being. We promise to answer all of your questions about these things. Before you burden yourself with reading this entire book, consider the following example of this real truth that we hope will inspire you to keep reading. Science currently claims that the sun will eventually burn out and all life and existence on the earth will end. It also has its theories about gravity and magnetism, which are just two of many examples. However, scientific theories, their truths, do not really present conclusive answers that remain the same throughout time. Keep in mind, there was a time in the not too distant past when science believed the earth was flat and that the sun revolved around it. When someone finally and courageously stood up and presented a different idea about the sun and the earth, this brave soul was not well liked. This fearless one, and others like him, stood against the prevailing truth of the past. This unorthodox idea that the earth revolves around the sun and not the other way around not only made a lot more sense, but also has not changed for the hundreds of years that have followed. It was the same in the past as it is today, and it will be forever and ever. The earth revolves around the sun. This is the real truth. As previous scientific theories have been proven wrong, so too can the current scientific theory about the sun. The real truth is that the sun is not burning out. Imagine that we had the ability to travel back in time billions of years with a machine that could measure the exact amount of energy, the light and heat, that the sun gives off. If we could do this, we would find that the amount of heat and light that the sun produces has not changed for billions of years and is still the same today. The sun was created in and of space matter. Science likes to call this matter dark matter. To maintain itself, the sun continually pulls in dark matter. This is similar to a nuclear reactor, which requires fuel rods to sustain its power and efficiency. These rods need to be changed from time to time to keep the reactor the same yesterday as it is today and as it will be in the future. In the like manner, the sun's fuel rods are the dark matter from which it was created. As the sun draws in dark matter to maintain itself, whatever else is found in the dark matter is also sucked in. This natural occurrence creates a force known as a gravitational pull. So, the next obvious question is, why aren't all the planets, including Earth, sucked into the sun and consumed along with the dark matter that fuels the sun's existence? So as to not to disappoint you so early on in your reading, here is that answer. Each planet has a nuclear-like reactor in the center of it, i.e., its core. Each planet was made of the same space material, dark matter, as the sun. The difference between the planets and the sun is that the sun doesn't need the planets in order to exist. The planets, however, do need the sun. The energy created by the sun makes the planets do what they do while orbiting around the sun. The sun's energy comes from a fusion process, taking dark matter to create ordinary matter. The energy from this process is also used in the creation of the planets. Each planet was created to act and be acted upon by the sun's energy. Each planet's nuclear core generates movement of energy, like a magnet. This creates a magnetic field. Two magnets do not push or pull. They simply maintain an equilibrium between each other by repelling or attracting until a balance is realized. In the case of celestial objects, planets and stars, the magnetic field between a sun and a planet repel each other. This keeps the planet from being sucked toward the sun beyond the planet's scientifically predetermined amount of energy produced by its core. Each planet is created according to a precise mathematical algorithm. It's a process that determines how strong its magnetic field will be. In our solar system, Jupiter's magnetic field was created to be much stronger than the Earth's. This causes Jupiter to stay a great distance away from the sun than the Earth is. This revelation about gravity and magnetism is the real truth, but it is not accepted by science. Why? Because it proves that the entire scientific community and its truths are wrong. It is pride that keeps science from automatically accepting explanations that make sense, that answer all the questions about gravity and magnetism. When science finally figures out how to create a new planet from dark matter, it will have figured out the mathematical algorithm, the process that will keep this new planet at a precise distance from the sun. This will be done according to the purpose for which the new planet is created. The two examples given above, things as they really are, prove that science isn't always correct, and neither is religion. At this point in the introduction, dealing with all the beliefs associated with religion would not be reasonable. Like science, their truths, religious truths, are also ever-changing, but even more confusing. However, because religious beliefs are the main cause of many suicides, these issues must be considered as very important and will be properly addressed in this book. This book will answer questions about who you are and why you exist. It will provide you with the real truth. These answers have never been given before. These answers will stand the test of time. These answers were the same in the past as they are today and will be forever, worlds without end. It's pretty easy to write a few paragraphs that make such bold claims. However, the only way you'll be convinced that the answers provided make sense and end your confusion is to finish reading this book. We invite you to keep reading. Please note, a very important thing to consider is that the information given in this book is free to everyone. It can easily be downloaded without cost. Furthermore, its authors do not want to be known or receive any accolade or praise. These two facts should be somewhat refreshing. The answers given in this book still might not change your mind about ending your existence on Earth. Perhaps knowing the real truth about who you are and why you exist will actually cause you to be even more sure about ending your own life. But at least in understanding these things as they really are, you can make a more informed decision. Again, a decision that only you can make for yourself. However, if this book serves its purpose, you will be convinced that you are worth saving and that your life upon this earth is worth living. That said, remember that there is no one on earth who has the right to decide whether or not you stay alive except you. The information provided in this book has some incredible redeeming power. It has the power to save you. Obviously, if you're thinking about ending your existence, you haven't received the right kind of information. Information that might help you answer the question, to live or not to live. Whatever information you have already received, whatever you have learned throughout your life on Earth has led you to contemplate the possibility that it would be better for you not to exist. Again, you have the power to make this choice, and no one has the power to make any decision for you except you. The people in your life who do not want you to end your life, to end your associations with them, are likely not going to appreciate the information given in this book. Ironically, not even if the information saves your life. Pride holds the human mind in chains of captivity. The philosophies of the world, mingled with the published writings of both science and religion, can create a mass of confusion in your mind. And science and religion are not going to surrender easily. If upon reading this book you decide to keep on living because of its information, and these real truths counter their truths, you might very well be rejected and mocked for considering and accepting the information that this book provides. Facing the pride of this world might convince you, yes, even more so, that life is not worth living among such ignorant people. The prideful people who have lost a loved one to suicide will likely not accept the information given in this book. Why? Because it will discount their truths. It will provide information that proves beyond any reasonable doubt what the human soul really is, and that it is eternal, always has been, and always will be, worlds without end. Defining consciousness, the human soul. As you read further, you will learn that you continue to exist after your mortal body is returned to the dust from which it was created on planet Earth. You will learn that whoever you are after you die is the exact same person you were, the real you, before you were born into a mortal body on this earth. You will also come to understand that the you who was created through the sexual process of two other people passing on their DNA has absolutely nothing to do with the eternal nature of your individual soul. This can be quite disturbing to people who have lost a loved one. These hopeful ones want to see their loved one again, in the same physical body in which their loved one existed on earth and in which they have experienced their mortal relationship with. Nevertheless, the real truth does not conform to the imaginations that the mortal human mind makes up. If the real you exists after your mortal body is gone, then common sense and logic dictates that this real you existed before your mortal body was created by two earth-based parents. In other words, if there is such a thing as a premortal life, then your post-mortal life must be the same, which it is. This is the real truth. Let's cater to religion for a moment. The following quote, as written, makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it is contrary to the beliefs of those who claim to accept it as their truth, as their scripture, as their word of God. Quote, "Now concerning the state of the soul between death and the resurrection, behold, it has been made known unto me by an angel that the spirits of all men, as soon as they are departed from this mortal body, yea, the spirits of all men, whether they be good or evil, are taken home to that God who gave them life." Unquote. The same religious group that maintains the above passage as their truth, despite their differing teachings, also claims that the mortal man Adam was once a god called Michael. Carefully considered, this assertion contradicts their truth that states, quote, "As man is, God once was. As God is, man may become," unquote. Michael is the one who had life and consciousness before being put into a deep sleep, where he started dreaming that he was the man Adam living in a lone and dreary world. Therefore, their truth should say, quote, "As God is, man once was. And as God is, man may become again," unquote. This idea that, quote, "as God," or Michael is, man Adam once was, and as God is, man may become again, was originally taught purposefully in this religion's sacred ordinances. But it contradicts this religion's more modern doctrine that, quote unquote, families are forever. If upon death a mortal person is taken home to that God who gave them life, then the earth parents who gave them mortal life are non-consequential to that person's eternal nature, to that person's eternal existence. We mention the above doctrine taught by this particular church because the rate of suicide is abnormally high among the members of this religion. Per capita, the members of this religion take more antidepressants than any other group of people currently living on earth. Leaders of this religion struggle to answer simple questions about who we are and why we exist. Because of this ignorance, this religion contributes to the mass of confusion that already causes a person to question the value of their life. We will deal with both scientific and religious truths in upcoming chapters. In order for you to feel that life is worth living and that existing as a conscious human being on earth has a personal purpose for you, the real truth about who we are and why we exist must be answered. It must make sense. No other questions can remain. So, what is the real truth about the human soul? The soul described herein is the power of consciousness. The information offered in this book will prove that unless a physical body is conscious of its environment, there is no soul connected to it. The physical body is, however, still able to function by itself in the environment in which it was created and exists. For example, it can have reflexes and a heartbeat while the body is only a fetus in a womb without a soul connected to it. Consciousness means that a physical body can receive energy from the environment in which it exists and give off energy, emit it, back into the same environment. A physical body alone cannot do this. For instance, a baby in a womb or a body after a person dies. Consciousness allows an entity, a physical body made of the same elements that exist in the environment, to act upon this environment, in other words, a world, and be acted upon by the same. The soul is not consciousness. It is the energy that allows you to exist on any particular planet in a physical body. This energy allows the body to maintain a constant interaction with the surrounding world. Better said, the soul is the power of consciousness. The physical body is not the soul. The physical body allows the soul not only to exist, but to operate and perform, i.e. to see, hear, taste, touch, smell, think, and breathe in the world in which it does exist. An infant body developing in the womb is not conscious. If a developing body had the power to become conscious, it would be a very sad day for the infant if it woke up inside the womb. Furthermore, the infant body does not and cannot act toward or react with the environment while developing inside the mother's womb in the same way that the body of the mother acts toward and reacts with her environment. Hence, the mother is conscious and the infant, while in the womb, is not. The particular Christian religion we mentioned above believes that Jesus Christ appeared a second time in his resurrected glory. It believes that Jesus Christ was born among the Jews in the Eastern Hemisphere and, after his resurrection, appeared in the Western Hemisphere to the people living there. A scripture specifically written to address this story describes a prophet living in the Western Hemisphere prophesying about the birth of Jesus in the Eastern Hemisphere. Note, again, we have chosen the above-mentioned religion without specifically naming it because of how many of its members use antidepressants and commit suicide. It is obvious that the contradicting doctrines taught by this particular religion add to an emotional distress that contributes to suicide. According to the story, the day before Jesus' soul was put into the body created for him in Bethlehem, located in the Eastern Hemisphere, his eternal soul was speaking to an ancient American prophet. Quote, "Lift up your head and be of good cheer, for behold, the time is at hand, and on this night shall the sign be given. On the morrow come I into the world." Unquote. This narrative about the mortal life of Jesus clearly demonstrates that his true self was not in the world while his mortal body was in his mother's womb. Quote, "On the morrow come I into the world." Unquote. Where was Jesus before he came into the world? This scripture referenced above should convince these religious believers that the eternal soul does not enter the body until the day of birth. In contrast, most religious people believe that the soul enters the body upon conception. Abortion rights are a popular topic of discussion and contention that divides humanity and causes undue stress on many lives. Many young girls who have had an abortion have been convinced that they murdered another human being. A few of these girls later committed suicide because of the guilt they felt. It is our hope to mitigate, to lessen this guilt. The infant's body does not exist in the womb until it begins to develop, commencing when an egg and a sperm join, then becoming the embryo and later the fetus. The environment from which the fetal body is created is provided by the person's womb, by the mother's womb. Unlike an unconscious fetus, the parent is conscious. This is determined by the ability of the parent's body being able to take in energy and release energy back into the environment in which the parent exists. The parent is a living soul. The fetus is not. Soon, advancements in technology and science will allow for the creation of a physical body outside of a female's womb. Such an artificial womb must have the ability to interact with the environment in order to suck in energy and pass it on to the developing body. This will allow the physical body to form and grow. Some might suppose that this artificial womb will meet the criteria of a soul because it has the power to act upon the environment in which it exists. But this is not the real truth. Therefore, it is very important to understand another crucial part of defining a soul. A soul has the power to act on its own. A living soul is not dependent on any outside influence or power acting upon it to control it or tell it what it can and cannot do in any given environment. In other words, the soul is living because it has free will. A fetus developing inside an artificial womb does not and cannot have free will. The inventors, engineers, and technicians that will develop this artificial womb will create and program it to do their will. However, when the developed physical body is released from its artificial environment, from the artificial womb, the persons who are responsible for the artificial womb no longer have any control over this body. This release from being bound to the womb is indicated by the new body taking its first breath. At this point, it begins to act and be acted upon solely by itself and of its own existence with free will. Again, the two requirements for the existence of the soul are: one, to have the power to act upon and be acted upon by the environment in which it exists, and two, to make the free will choice to act in and react to the environment. Therefore, when a physical body has the power to consciously make free will decisions to act and allow itself to be acted upon by the environment in which it exists, without any other thing acting upon it, the body then is a living soul. Outside of either the parent's womb or an artificial womb, the physical body no longer needs the womb or the person or the thing that provided the womb. For example, upon adoption by another person, infants are taken away from the person who provided the womb. Anyone can feed and care for the newly created body, but the infant still has the free will choice to eat or not. This is different from the time the body was developing in the womb, when the body had no free will and could not make any choices of its own. Above was written, quote, "Those who have lost a loved one to suicide will likely not accept the information given in this book." Why? Because it will discount their truths. It will provide information that proves beyond any reasonable doubt what the human soul really is, and that it is eternal. The information in this book will likewise offend people who believe that the only proper way for a human body to be created is in the womb of a parent. To these people, the accepted gender of a person who has a womb in which a body can form is generally recognized as female, in contrast to a male who does not have a womb. These believe a God designed a childbearing person's body for that very purpose, to bear children. The idea of a God suggests that a power exists outside of and above a mortal human's free will. The advent of the artificial womb will soon negate the need for a female's womb. Furthermore, as new human bodies are engineered to resist sickness and aging, the artificial womb will replace and be accepted as a better option to mortal womb-created bodies. Science can explain how chromosomes work, starting with molecules of amino acids that create proteins, which creates DNA, which produces bodies, not only of humans, but of all living things. As you understand further how life is created, allowing for the creation of a new life in an artificial womb, the idea of a supernatural God will not make much sense any longer. For this reason, religion fights science and its advancements and innovations that take the place of a God. Religion and therapists. Because most people who commit suicide hold religious beliefs as their standards and values when they consider and contemplate the worth of their existence, we will utilize a lot of religious ideologies. If you're contemplating suicide because of some confusion associated with your personal religious beliefs, continue reading. You will discover ideas that will truly set you free from the bondage and chains of hell created by the religions found on this earth. Many people believe that there exists a power outside of the human soul, a supernatural power that has more supremacy over a person than the person has over their own self. Those who believe this should consider that this outside force or power, this God, has done nothing and can do nothing to keep a person from committing suicide. These people should also consider and examine their own beliefs, especially those who believe in Judeo-Christian Islamic scripture. One might ask, how did their God create the first human named Adam? Was sex involved? In whose womb did Adam's body develop? According to the story, Eve, the first woman, did not exist before Adam, the first man. The Bible's narrative explains clearly that Eve's body came from Adam's body. Therefore, as the story goes, the first male's body created the first female's body. How did God do this? How did God create the first physical bodies for the earth experience? Could it have been that the first body, Adam's, was non-binary, ungendered? What was the actual process that occurred that allowed God to create the first human bodies? These questions will be answered as you begin to learn real truth. Moreover, and most importantly, according to the Bible story, a woman was cursed to experience pain in childbearing. The way that women have children currently, in this cursed or fallen world, is certainly very painful. But this way was a curse, and not the way that God created Adam and Eve in his own way, with God's intelligence, according to these religious beliefs. If God were ever to take away this curse, how then would new human bodies be created from the dust of the earth? Although people miss it, if understood correctly, the Bible does in fact explain that in the beginning, God did not intend for people to experience pain in childbearing, nor for a female to be subservient to and dominated by a male. The above-mentioned people cannot answer these simple and logical observations and critical examinations of their beliefs. They will be offended by analyzing their own Bible story. Additionally, those who have lost a loved one to suicide will be even more offended, as it is proven beyond any doubt that the human soul is an eternal entity of power, of energy. It will be proven that the power of the soul has nothing to do with the body created from the DNA patterns passed on by mortal parents, who, according to the aforementioned religious beliefs, are cursed. This power of consciousness, because it is eternal, without beginning, without end, was exactly the same before connecting to a mortal, earthbound body, as it will continue to be after disconnecting from this body through death. Most people who report having a near-death experience sense that they have left their mortal body. Some relate that they have seen their mortal body lying dead. Who are they when they are seeing their physical body lying dead? What are they? Why are they floating? How are they floating and moving throughout some sort of environment, space, outside of their earthbound body? Whoever or whatever these conscious entities are, gravity and any of the other laws associated with the earth seem to have no effect on their continued conscious, presumably physical post-mortal self. If you have experienced the death of a young loved one, you may find comfort in believing that one day you will see this person again, and that they will look just like they did before they died. Let's examine the logic of this. As an example, let's suppose that you're a young couple and your partner dies in their early 30s. Your hope is that you will see that person again someday in the hereafter. Let's assume you continue to live until you're in your 80s, having other loving relationships with other partners. When you die, are you going to see your former partner still in their 30s while you're now in your 80s? Your grandchildren see you alive in your 80s, and that's the only memory they have of you before you died. If being their grandparent was the only relationship that meant anything to them, when they meet you after death, are you going to be their 80-year-old grandparent? Or are you going to appear 30 again, continuing your relationship with your partner who died in their early 30s, discounting the other relationships that you had after your partner had died? This book will prove that the conscious you, which will continue to exist after the mortal you dies, is the exact same being, the exact same soul, the exact same power that you always were, that you are, and that you will always be. This information will greatly offend those who receive comfort and hope from the belief that one day they will see their dead loved ones again. This information will also prove that the you, who you are while living consciously upon earth, making your own decisions according to what you are experiencing on earth, will never exist again after you die. This is a very hard concept for a lot of people to accept. Those who benefit or profit from the idea that you will continue to look like and be the same person you are while living upon earth will fight this information. But again, their information, their beliefs, and their opinions about human existence have not helped you decide not to end your existence. Furthermore, it adds to the massive confusion that's led you to contemplate this. If the information given in this book does not change your mind, then perhaps you're making the right choice to end your life, a life you feel is without hope or purpose. Your suicide will end the life of a person who, taking all things into consideration, hopelessly lives upon earth. However, our commitment to you, because you're taking the time to read this information, is that it will give you the proper knowledge so that you can make the right decision of whether to be or not to be, a decision that only you can make. Again, not to seem counterproductive to our hope, perhaps it would be better for you to end your existence upon this earth. Perhaps ending your current relationships with those who have not helped you decide to continue living would be a better choice. However, by the end of this book, it is hoped that you will begin to see your relationships with others differently and also gain a brand new perspective on your relationship with the earth experience. Don't kill yourself until you've given this whole book a chance. Regardless of the information herein, no one can make that decision but you. Again, you have the power to end your life or to save it. You have a power over you that no one else living on earth, nor existing anywhere else in the universe, has over you or can take away from you. You are the creator of your own destiny. You and you alone will determine whether or not your conscious existence upon planet Earth will end or continue. No one else knows what you're going through. Yeah, many will tell you that they understand and want to help you, but you have probably already realized that they don't understand you, because if they did, they would have been able to convince you not to end you. You already know what others say about suicide. You've heard opinions from your parents, your teachers, your friends, and even from lots of strangers. How do these people, especially the strangers, know what you're going through? Sure, therapists, psychologists, doctors, religious and spiritual leaders have done their best to convince you that your life is worth living. But what they've really tried to convince you of is that your life is worth something to them. Your loved ones don't want to feel the pain and guilt of losing you. If they do lose you, they might partially blame themselves for contributing to your decision to end your life. The strangers have been paid to give you advice and counsel, not only in money, but also in the honor and respect they receive from others because of their titles. There are all kinds of advice from strangers in this world, and there are all kinds of people making money off your desire to take your own life. If you don't feel valued by others, or you feel you no longer have a purpose in life, tell everyone that you're going to commit suicide. Watch how fast your parents react to get you help. Watch how fast a therapist, psychologist, spiritual, or religious leader suddenly takes interest in you. They will smile, speak softly, and do everything they can to convince you that they care about you. They might even put you in an institution, taking away your free will and force you to live. You'll get lots of information from people who sincerely want to help you, but you know better. You know that you would not be receiving any of their help or attention if you hadn't threatened to end your life. Where were these people with their outpouring of love and understanding while you were going through the troubles that made you consider ending your existence in the first place? You're certainly not alone in your desire to end your life. Suicide rates have increased dramatically over the years. These rates are continuing to increase despite how many books and articles have been written containing information that the authors hope and believe will help. The increasing number of mental health experts hasn't lowered the number of suicides. No matter how much study and effort has gone into trying to help people decide not to end their life, it appears instead that this effort could be part of the problem. It shouldn't surprise you to find out that most therapists go to their own therapist because of their inability to deal with their own mental issues. Aren't these people supposed to be giving you advice to help you with your problems? If these so-called experts are seeing other experts to help them, how can you trust that what your therapist is telling you will work for you? If their wisdom and advice is going to work for you, then obviously it should work for them. The science of mental health has failed you if you have listened to these strangers but still want to end your life. But what about religion? Have spiritual guides, gurus, prophets, seers, and revelators made a difference in your decision? If these truly made a difference, the suicide rates among religious believers, devotees to religion, wouldn't be going up. And again, it shouldn't surprise you to find out that the majority of people who end their life are religious. Religious people try asking for God's help. When their perceived God doesn't answer them or intervene in some supernatural, godlike way, they feel that not even God cares if they end their life or not. Most religious leaders do not want to lose you. They have invented all kinds of concepts to convince you to continue living. Some have even threatened you with eternal damnation, attempting to stop you. On the other hand, some religious leaders in the world have promoted suicide as a way to please God and help God do his work. Using common sense, you might question, well, if sacrificing my life to please God and fulfill his commandments is good, then why wouldn't these religious leaders sacrifice their own lives for the greater good? Why do I have to die for God and my religious leaders do not? You might be aware of the Christian belief that God came down to earth in the form of a mortal man and sacrificed his life for you. Some call this the atonement. The belief that God gave his life for you should convince you that you don't need to sacrifice your own life to gain eternal salvation. God has already saved you. Unfortunately, despite this very popular belief, this Christian God seems to be giving people commandments that lead them to suicide. Suicidal Christians are unable to find happiness in following Christian commandments, not mandates given in the Jesus story, but commandments from men who claim to have a connection with Jesus that you don't have. In reality, your fear of God is based entirely upon the precepts, the ideas and teachings that you receive from these men. If you've read the Jesus story, you might have thought it would be a good thing if there actually was a God like Jesus. You would hope this God would teach the same things Jesus himself taught others, as the story describes. Sadly, this is not what Christians teach and believe. It would be wonderful to hope that the same Jesus of whom the stories are told would come again to the earth and wipe out all of your fears and anxiety. The problem with all Christian religions is that they honor the man Jesus with their lips, but their hearts are far from him. Again, the fear that people have toward Jesus is taught and instilled in them by the concepts of men. Consider the following Judeo-Christian Islamic scripture, quote, "For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes, the prophets and your rulers, the seers hath he covered. Wherefore the Lord said, Forasmuch as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark, and they say, Who seeth us? Who knoweth us? Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the work say of him that made it, He made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, He had no understanding? Consider the above scripture in relation to the ignorance of religious leaders who are in a deep sleep. Surely their hidden and private acts will one day be known. Wouldn't it be advantageous to you, while considering if your life is worth living, if someone would introduce a marvelous work and a wonder? What if this information countered all the wise and prudent men who have been giving you counsel, but who have not been able to persuade you to continue to live? We hope this book becomes part of this marvelous work and a wonder for you. It already is part of a marvelous work and a wonder. The best efforts of historians and news reporters prove that religion has created more war and death than any other human belief system. Believing that there is life after death will not help you decide whether or not to take your life. In fact, if you believe that there is life after death, then you're more likely to rely on this faith and commit suicide, hoping that the next life is better than this one. If you finish this book and read it with an open mind, a sincere heart, and with real intent to see if the information offered will help you make the right decision, you will find that the information surpasses and transcends science and religion. The information is much more logical than anything that science and religion have to offer. So if science and religion can't help you answer the question you are pondering, to be or not to be, what can? Who can help you? Again, there's only one person who can save you. Only you can save you. Using common sense might help you make a rational decision about your existence. However, you must first consider new information that makes more sense than anything you've ever considered before. Common sense and the ability to reason. Because you are a human, you have the ability to reason and think differently from all other life forms that exist. Keep in mind that there is no other life form, besides human, that contemplates suicide and is faced with making an informed decision about ending its life. It's our human ability to make this quote-unquote informed decision that separates us from all other life forms. One of the world's most renowned thinkers, Albert Einstein, said something to this effect, quote, "Common sense is the collection of prejudices acquired by the age of 18, unquote. Therefore, if Einstein is correct, then in order to consider any information that your prejudiced mind might automatically reject because your common sense has been affected by the prejudices of society, it will be very important for you to become like a little child. This means that instead of rejecting new information that can't pass through the mental filters that have been established in your mind, you must set aside the quote-unquote collection of prejudices that you've acquired by age 18. Einstein continued, quote, "Learn from yesterday, live for today, hope for tomorrow. The important thing is to not stop questioning. He who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe In other words, he who can no longer pause to wonder and stand absorbed in awe is as good as dead. His eyes are closed, unquote. If you do not want to question everything that you know, everything that you have been taught since your early childhood, then this book is not for you. If this is the case, perhaps you should end your life if it is not worth living. If you won't open your eyes, then you're as good as dead already. But if for a moment you can pause to think about and allow your mind to be absorbed in the awe of reading the marvelous work and the wonder presented in this book, you will not be disappointed. You will want to live another day. In living another day, you will begin to see things differently. You will no longer see you or your earthly experience through the blindness caused by your collection of acquired prejudices, those that have led you to believe that your life is no longer worth living. And then perhaps you will want to live an entire lifetime. The information in this book will give you knowledge that you have never considered before. However, you must have some trust in the book in order to give this information a chance to pass through the hardened filters of your mind. If you start out with a hope that there might be more information that you have never considered before, you will be shown things that you cannot unsee. After reading and contemplating this new information, you will know things that you never knew before. These things will actually make a lot of sense, more than any other information you have ever considered. Knowing these things will redeem you from the ignorance that got you to the point of wanting to end your life. Your mind will be opened and enlightened. Then nothing can stop you from seeing things differently than you do now. Your parents, peers, teachers, and spiritual leaders may warn you about reading this information. If you are confronted by their discontent and fear of this new information, simply ask them if you should then continue with the choice you are considering to end your life, a choice caused by the information that these people put into your head. Express to them that all they have done, all they have taught, and all they have counseled did nothing to change your mind. And if they truly cared about helping you make the right decision, why wouldn't they allow you? Why wouldn't they even encourage you to seek knowledge that might save you? Keep in mind that they are the ones from whom you acquired all the knowledge that is responsible for your common sense. Unfortunately, this quote-unquote sense of being, your common sense, led you to the point of considering suicide. Again, it is highly probable that they are going to be offended by the new information offered in this book. If they are right, then none of the information in this book is going to change your mind. If they confront you about reading it, plead with them to support you. Explain to them that you want to consider ideas other than what you've received from them, details that promise to help you make the decision to continue living. Once you have the knowledge provided in this book, you will not see your parents, peers, teachers, therapists, or spiritual leaders in the same light as you saw them before. You will understand how ignorant they really were when they were teaching ideas that were not how things really are. They were not the real truth. If they have gained value from you looking to them to lead you, guide you, and walk beside you, helping you find the way, they will naturally fight this loss by discrediting the information. They will try to convince you that you are being deceived. However, as explained above, once the real truth is presented to you and nothing else makes more sense than it does, you will not be able to unsee it or understand it. No matter how much your loved ones, teachers, and guides, quote, unquote, weep and wail and gnash their teeth, i.e. become angry, you will not be dissuaded in your continued search to understand things as they really are. The challenge that you must make to yourself is a challenge that led you to consider the real truth. You are reading this information right now for a reason. Challenge yourself to find out for yourself if there is information available that is more logical to your renewed common sense. If there is, then you will know that what you've learned in the past was not things as they really are. Knowing the real truth. By reading the information in this book, you will realize that everyone, excepting those with physical or mental disabilities, has the same ability to learn and understand things as they really are, as they really were, and as they really are to come. Anything other than a knowledge of how things really are, were, and are to come causes the problems that this world is encountering. Your personal lack of this real knowledge has led you to consider ending your life. It can be said that, quote, whatsoever is more or less than the real truth is the spirit of evil, unquote. Upon reading this book, you will understand that you have the same qualities and abilities to know and understand the real truth as everyone else living upon this earth has. Presidents, popes, priests, and leaders do not have more qualities and abilities than you do. You will be convinced that you do not need anyone else but you. Note, again, because the information given in this book will end up offending most of the people in your life, especially those who are religious or spiritual, consider the quoted information below that is associated with religious belief. The qualities mentioned above can be properly defined as the quote-unquote spirit, or in other words, quote, those qualities that are regarded as forming the definitive or typical elements of a person, nation, or group, or in the thought and attitudes of a particular period, i.e., spirit. The knowledge of real truth, this spirit, can also be described as light. This spirit or light is given equally to every human with a normal working brain that is born upon earth. In other words, it is, quote, the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world, unquote. We can also refer to the real truth as the quote-unquote spirit of truth. This spirit will help you to know and understand how the world was created, how the universe was created, if it ever was, and how all things were created by this spirit, through this spirit, and of this spirit, the spirit of real truth. Every person living on the earth has a right to receive a fullness of this light, or in other words, to understand all things and know all things, to know all real truth. Unfortunately, you have been deceived throughout your life by those in whom you have placed your trust to tell you the truth about all things. They have lied to you, most of them unknowingly. Sometimes they have even admitted that they have not, quote, received the fullness of truth, yea, even of all truth, unquote. And if they have not, and they admit to that, how can they teach you things if they don't know the truth themselves? These people whom you have trusted to teach you do not understand how things really are, and their pride and ego will not allow them to accept that without them, you actually can receive a fullness of understanding of everything that did exist, currently exists, and will ever exist. This book will convince you that you can, quote, receive truth and light until you are glorified in truth and know all things, unquote. You will become convinced that you do not need any other person to tell you what to do, what to believe, or how to act. Upon knowing the real truth of all things, you will understand that you are the only God upon which you should depend for this intelligence. You and your brain is the only source and can be the only source of this real truth. You will find out that you, quote, were also in the beginning, unquote, with God as this, quote, unquote, spirit of truth, which is the proper intelligence to know all things. And this intelligence, or the light of truth, was not created or made, neither indeed can be. It is the same yesterday, today, and forever. In other words, the real you was not created or made, and it's always the same. It was the same in the past, it's the same presently, and will be the same in the future. The information in this book will convince you that your life is worth living and that you are the greatest life form that exists. You are the creator of both heaven and earth and all things. You are, quote, the very eternal Father of heaven and earth, unquote. In other words, all things relevant to your existence were, are, and will be created in your own mind by exercising free will. If the information provided in this book saves your life because you found it, considered it, and it made a lot of sense, it will be proven that you are the only Savior upon which you can depend. Remember that none of the gods or saviors presented by religion, nor any of their supposed representatives on earth, could provide you with information that convinced you not to commit suicide. Having only yourself to depend on, having the real truth presented to you, your eternal soul will gain the power of this intelligence and help you answer the question that you are considering, to be or not to be. If this book fulfills its purpose, you will feel a renewed sense of the importance of yourself. You will choose to continue this earth experience and continue to be a God, the highest life form possible and the greatest compendium of matter that exists in the universe.